right? But that means that you don't have any pumps at all. That means you don't have any clear shots or rabid bites or, well, I guess rabid bite would be a little harder, or incidental life gain from other cards, right? Like, or that 3/4 lifelinker guy, right? There are a fair amount of ways to flip this, and I don't think it's going to be absurdly hard to do. So with all that in mind, I kind of want to call this a mild build around. Let's call it a build around, and let's call it like a C plus. This can be really good, but you need more than one. Like you probably need, let's say like two to four ways to make it flip before it's really worth it. 1/1 first strike isn't terrible in this format, anyways. That's the other bit, is that a 1/1 first strike lifelink isn't that bad. So yeah, probably more of a constructed card, but I still think it's fine. This would be good in Soul Sisters. Ooh, that is interesting. Yeah, this could be good in Soul Sisters. This might go straight into Modern, huh? Anyways, yeah, remember, 4/4 first strike trample lifelink is pretty good. There's not a lot that deals with that. Next, Long Road Home. 1 and a white, instant, exile target creature. Oh my god! So no, wait, never mind, there's more text. At the beginning of the next end step, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. So cards like this, we've seen them before. We've seen Otherworldly Journey. We saw Essence Flux. Essence Flux saw almost no play. Now, this is more flexible than Essence Flux. Because Essence Flux, you could only target your own creatures. This, you could target your opponent's creatures. So then that's not nothing. The fact that you can bounce your opponent's creature means that sometimes you'll be able to swing in with your team because of this. Like, let's suppose they have, I don't know, like they just stabilized by playing the Gisela, right? If they just stabilize by playing Gisela and they attack with everything else, you could Long Road Home their Gisela and swing for game sometimes. But I don't think that this is a very, like, if you consider this as a trick, it's not that good. Like, I just outlined kind of a dream scenario, but that's not going to happen all that often. Really, where this card shines is if you have a lot of enter the battlefield effects. So, yeah, I don't know. This is probably like a C- or D+. Let's call it like a D+. Can be good. Gets better with ETB effects, but probably not worth a slot in most decks. But I haven't played with Otherworldly Journey very often, so I don't know how good this card's going to be. I just don't think it's going to be that good. Yeah, again, it can exile token. That's a good point. Can help mono white humans with some of the ETB. True, yeah. There are definitely places you can play this, but I don't think you're going to be too happy about playing it. Next, Lunarch Mantle. 1 and a white, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has pay 1 mana, sack a permanent. This creature gains flying until end of turn. So this gets better if your opponent has enchantment removal. Like if they have passivisms in your deck, this might be more playable. In their deck, this might get more playable. If you have creatures that want to go to the graveyard, this might get better. Like, for instance, if you have... what was the card? Desperate Sentry. If you have Desperate Sentry, this gets better. But, like, I don't love this. This is better. It's so hard to rate because, like, Senseless Rage was actually playable because it had Madness on it, right? This is better than Senseless Rage, like strictly better than Senseless Rage without the Madness. But Madness is what made that card so good. I don't think this really matches with that. I don't think it's terrible. Like, you can play this, and against some decks that don't have a lot of removal, this will be quite good, in fact, but I don't know. I think this is probably like a D+. Like, or maybe just a D. Oops. I didn't want to make it a D+. Might get better versus enchantment removal, but otherwise pretty mediocre. Or with creatures that want to go to the yard. Yeah, that's not great. Okay, Peace of Mind, not playable. Except if you have a lot of madness. So, shit, what would... See, that? Okay, here's the problem. When I was going through the set, what I noticed is that there are very, very few madness cards outside of red in Eldritch Moon. Almost none, really. Like, there's 1 or 2 in black, and I think there's, like, maybe 1 or 2 in blue. Would I play this with the Rider? Maybe in... I don't know. I don't really know. Like, I wouldn't think about this as a Delirium Enabler, Bugsy, because you want your Delirium Enablers to give you actual value, and 3 life gain is not really that much value. Now, if you were madnessing the cards, sure, this would be pretty good, but... Eesh. I think that this is, like, sideboard build-around, maybe. Like, this has got to be... let's just call it an F for now. The problem is I can see some situations where you'd want to play this, but there's so few that I feel like you're better off not playing this at all. For Madness is a B-, except gaining 3 life is not nearly as good as getting a 1/1 lifelinker, though, in most situations. Like, the best comparison for Peace of Mind is probably Call the Bloodline. Right? I think that's pretty accurate, honestly. Is the best comparison for Peace of Mind is probably Call the Bloodline, at least in the last couple sets. The first thing to remember is that Call the Bloodline could actually win you the game, because if you have a bunch of 1/1 lifelinkers, well, there you go. You know, you can win with that. You can't win by gaining 3 life. The second thing to remember is Call the Bloodline was in a color that that had madness in it, right? Because Call the Bloodline was in black, and black had quite a few madness cards, right? And yeah, Vampire Tribal as well. So, like, Call the Bloodline was much more synergistic with madness than this card is. This card has very, very little synergy with madness. Like, the discard a card, gain 3 life doesn't do much aside from, flip Lone Rider. I just don't think you're going to want to use this often. Let's call it a build around D. I could be wrong about this. It's possible that, it would be better. It's better than I'm saying, but I just don't think it's going to get there. That's all. Also, I'm going to eat a York patty because I am hungry. Yum. Whew. All right, next card. Providence, F. Not playable in limited. Okay, next. Probably not even playable in constructed. Repel the Abominable. 1 and a white. Prevent all damage that would be dealt destroyed by non-human sources. Well, this is a Pseudofog. This can be a one-sided fog if you are a human stack and your opponent doesn't have any humans. That's pretty good. In general, I don't know how much you're going to want to play cards like these. I think that human decks would prefer to have a pump spell than this, generally. I think that human spells or human decks would rather have, for instance, what's the card? Truth Fate Sensor than this. Like, and the reason why I'm mentioning those cards in particular, is this falls into the category of non-creature, non-removal cards, and generally there's not a lot of room for those in your deck. Like maybe between 3 to 5 slots in an average limited deck. That's what you have for cards like these. This does get better if you are a dedicated humans deck, but I don't think it's going to be that good. So let's call it like a sideboard. Decent in mono humans, but not great otherwise. All right, another rare. Sanctifier of Souls. 3 and a white for a 2/3. Well, that doesn't hold up so far, even with the human text. So let's see what else it says. It also says, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Sanctifier of Souls gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Still, I don't think I'd play that if that was all the text on it. However, it has an activated ability as a mana sink. Exile a creature card from your graveyard. Put a +1/+1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. That makes me like this card. Mana sinks are powerful and limited. In a deck that is trying to get Delirium, you might not want to exile the first creature, though sometimes you will. But once you start trading creatures and you're getting it into the yard, this card gets a lot better, in my opinion. So what should we call this? I think I like calling this maybe a B-. I don't think it's a solid B, because if you're getting beaten down, this doesn't do much. Right, Strand? Like, if your opponent plays 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, 5-drop, you're kind of fucked. This card doesn't do much for you. But if the game goes long, this card gets a lot better. It's a human, which is relevant, and it makes spirits, which is also pretty relevant. So I kind of like this. Just remember, like, this doesn't hold its weight on its own. Don't forget these triggers, though. What people are going to forget is that you can attack with this as a 2/3, exile a creature card at instant speed, and make it a 3/4, which is kind of cool, actually, because this can make itself bigger. That's neat. Let's call this like a... Yeah, actually, I could see calling it just a straight B. Great late game value. Activation threat is real with this one. Don't forget, like, you can make it bigger at instant speed on its own, which is kind of cool. All right. By the way, if you want to see the spreadsheet, you can go here. Anyways, Selfless Spirit. 1 and a white for a 2/1 flyer. You could sacrifice Selfless Spirit, and what do you get? Well, you get the fact that your spirits you control are indestructible until end of turn. This is very good. 2/1 flyer for 2 mana without drawbacks, and in fact with upside, is fantastic. Having said that, this doesn't quite... Well, actually doesn't warp the game, because this is definitely B territory. I don't know if it's A territory or not. This isn't a very fast... This doesn't win the game on its own. But it does change fundamentally the way the game is played. I think I like this at B+. This is just a really efficient 2-drop. Like a 2/1 for 2 with flying and just a ton of upside is so good. And you can win combat with it as well. Let's just call it a B+. You're going to take this over probably every uncommon. I can't imagine taking an uncommon over this. Even like good removal, you might